Okay, so just a quick one a little bit later this weekend, just but still a little bit of time to do a bit of a market wrap, just to sort of have a look over the charts about how they sort of finished up for the week and that. It's what are we at? Sort of, geez, 10, almost 11 o'clock on the Sunday night. So still a little bit of time to sort of see what was happening, see a bit of a result. So also, we've got this new sort of situation that's happening in the Middle East at the moment. So hard to sort of say how much that's going to impact the charts and the market sort of come Monday morning. But certainly, I mean, the market doesn't like these kind of things in terms of sort of, risk. So there's probably a high likelihood that most of the stuff that sort of we look at today and what we were looking at last Friday will sort of have a little bit of a shudder, I'd say, on the Monday morning. So certainly, I'm expecting probably risk to reverse a little bit from the sort of the solid finish that it was on, and probably US dollar possibly to get a bit of a punch up, but sort of move north. But I'm not really sure how this will impact. So that's a bit of a wait and see for me. So we're just going to have to sort of see how that pans out. But certainly from what I was sort of saying on the sort of Friday night, things did play out quite well, very well, in fact, in that sort of, we had gold punch up after NFP. We had Aussie sort of close quite strong. Again, if you saw what I was saying on Friday, above 64 was the sort of golden one, which I'll get to in a second because we'll see that this is pretty much the line in which it's actually just knocked back from. Um, but also had copper sort of following that little rally. China mainly still sort of flat, or the yuan. So yeah, it's interesting to sort of see how if the markets will be shaken by this stuff sort of happening in the Middle East and that. Sort of come Monday and sort of obviously through the week, got a couple of big bits of news coming out with I think US CPI this week as well. So yeah, we'll sort of see how that impacted. But first of all, just with the charts. So looking at Aussie. So if you watch what I was sort of saying last week, well, mainly on the Friday, but it was sort of in relation to the news events that we'd had sort of coming out through the week. We had three sort of larger bits of US data last week, and they were all sort of USD positive. So, you're seeing the DXY punch up, go a little bit north, but a lot of them were just reverting, and they were sort of shaking it off like within an hour, half an hour, 2 hours, these kind of things. And this was what I was saying, and this is what I was projecting for NFP as well. And, it played out absolutely to a T. So sort of dragged this on across there. That's just where we had these sort of previous resistance points, obviously a little bit of support. So quite an interesting zone around here, this sort of 63.20. But um, as you can see here, this is on the 1 hour chart, and that this is the NFP drop. Numbers were just monster. So I think it was like 170 was the expectation. It came in like 337. So it just really, moved across, moved way above what the market was expecting anyway. So, typical reaction. This is what we saw. US dollar pumped against all its crosses. Same with the Aussie. Bang, sold down. And then look at this. Within, a matter of hours, there was a bit of choppy back and forth. Obviously, if you get into the lower ones, you can see this kind of shudder back and forth, and then it came out here. But these sort of moves, particularly, sort of when you're getting these large moves that are coming specifically from one piece of data, like, there's the drop, bang, we're getting the move. If the market can shake that off within the session and go above, generally are very bullish. Even though if you look at the sort of prior coming into it, it was pretty flat sideways. I mean, we have been sort of moving up through the last few days, and as I said, look, you're having those sort of bits of news and data going bang, come back over. This is another one, bang, came back over. So yeah, if you can sort of overcome that, what I call data drop point, is when the data dropped, and of course, in this case, the price dropped, and it works in reverse as well. And we can overcome that sort of spot. That's always a very bullish sort of sign. And as you can see here, it's just powered through. So that was around what, so 350, 360 kind of thing. And then it sort of topped out at 64 on the dot. And this is what I would say. Above 64, I would have been happy. We'll have a year for a bit of a continuation to sort of push back up towards the sort of 65 to come this coming week. But if you look at the weekly, this is what I find interesting and what I'm paying attention to with the Aussie is this weekly area here. This very much, I mean, it came down, clipped these previous weekly sort of wick lows, and you can see the reaction that it did manage to muster. Above 64 would have given us a little bit of a stronger thing, but realistically, you can move this up here. Actually, let's just do a whole new one. Use your sort of range along here. That's your sort of breakout zone. Yeah, so that's the area that you want to see a close outside, because you can see the bulls have tried to sort of push it out here a number of times only to be hammered back in. This one at one stage was just like this candle over here, very big, ugly one down. And that's the thing, that's what you look for a confirmation of a continuation of the direction. We were sort of bearish coming into it, consolidated for a number of weeks, closed down here. Well, that's it. And that says that we're done with this level and we're moving down with it. So a failure to continue, obviously, it's not, okay, this is super bullish, but a failure to continue does result in, okay, well, we can't go this way. We can only go back the other way. So you could still expect to sort of see a bit of a move back up. And realistically, as I said, 65 is your breakout for the top side of it all. I mean, a high close up here, sort of, high 60, the same similar thing here. If we could get a weekly close, even just to this sort of like, 64.70, 64.80, obviously above 65 better, that would sort of signal that, okay, we're done with this level in this direction, and we start to see this move back up here. But as it is for now, I would say the immediate threat, and again, there's sort of stuff going on in the Middle East could affect this. I'm not 100% sure. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean, even regardless of that, that we can't continue down if that even were to not have happened. But it means that there's certainly still a little bit more of a battleground going on around here. Certainly with the US dollar sort of settling down, and as I said, with those bits of news, that's something to watch and something to look for. So, I mean, had this other sort of bit of news not happened, I would expect that we possibly still have some upside potential coming through this week. If we get onto the daily, we see this is the line that we were marking out. This sort of falling resistance is what we're looking at now. And again, that close above 64 would have given us a nice confirmation of being above this line that we can see has, again, sort of proven to be a bit of a sort of resistance point. So a close above this line is the first thing that we're going to be sort of looking for. And this could be on the daily, weekly up around here, but above 65, that's really, if you want to get the bulls back in charge, and it's not to say it's going to come all the way back up here, but then you can say, okay, yes, this was a bottom. We can start to drag our fibs over these things, and we can start to go with, even if we were to continue and have another attack on the lows, where might we be going? So 61's obviously a nice little retracement level above 65 here. We've then got the sort of 66 of a round number, these previous lows over here. So, again, like all the other charts, we know these were the buyers. They became the sellers, and we haven't even come back up here. So again, once we get up to this zone here, the sort of 66, that's going to be an area where you're going to get the market is going to sell back down. Doesn't matter how hard it's coming through. I mean, these, of course, could be over here, could be over here. It doesn't matter. Like, it could still sort of range for a bit more and then sort of come up over here. But when the price does eventually sort of move up towards the 66, that's going to be a strong battleground to get above. Get above that and close above that, say the fundamentals align, and the Fed says, okay, we're pausing, and we're going to sort of sit on that, and the RBA sort of comes back and says, okay, yep, now we're going to raise rates and we need to push these things up, and you get that sort of Santa rally sort of happening, and the world sort of going, okay, yeah, we're very risk on. The fundamentals align and we get above 66. Then you've got something to talk about, and you're starting to look, and obviously that'd be quite a strong bullish trend, and then you'd be looking up over here. But without getting ahead of ourselves, and because obviously it's still in a very sort of bearish sort of state, I do expect to see a little bit of a push on risk in the coming week or so, and subsequent week after that, if we can. 65 is the first sort of line in the sand. That's a really one. Until you get past that, there's no point really talking about these. But again, once you get past this, then they're the levels that we're going to be looking for. Okay, so that's Aussie. Sort of flipping over to gold. Gold, as I mentioned, that neg D. Oh, love negative divergence. So they're always a great sort of reversal sort of thing here. And again, we sort of see the same thing here. It's funny because I charted on two different platforms. The other platforms that are showed, and there's the sell. It looked like a very different sell on the RSI, but still the thing is the same. And this is what we said on the sort of Friday sort of analysis as well, was that we got the price moving down here. This is on the 4-hour candles. This is obviously over a couple of days. The selling is not matching up with this, and that is what that negative divergence is. We know that this is that sort of strong area of support. You know, those two things combined, above 33 was the area that I like to call it for a confirmation. Again, I don't know how this stuff over the weekend is going to affect the market sort of come Monday and push through the week. But certainly this at the moment is a strong rejection. These are how the sort of you want to see your trends change if they are going to change. I'm not saying you're going to the top everywhere, but you know, you want to see a big explosion out. You don't want to see a small dribble, 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 dribble. You want to see market commit and say, yeah, here we are, and bang, we're going. And again, same sort of thing. If you look at this, you can see this on the data drop. This recovered even quicker than the Aussie. This is on the 1 hour. There's the data drop on the NFP on Friday. Came down here, bang, that sort of support line, the horizontal support zone that we know that we marked back from previously, and bang, exploded. Got up above that 1930, came back for a back test, and really, you know, we're just getting a tiny little box sort of ranging here. So, I mean, there's no sort of full confirmation that we're going much higher, but certainly for the immediate, we're not going lower. So that's one thing for the metal longs at the moment. If we can hold above this 1930, you see this a bit better on a 4-hour. You can see, again, this is a pretty easy shot down here. So if we can get up and above and hold this zone, you know, I think sort of a realistic target, I mean, it's going to be some hard work. It's not going to fire straight up here, but 1850s to 1860, I think is a reasonable zone that we can sort of like, obviously we can see these ones with supports and supports. So this is going to be an area where sellers are going to be. But again, even just a little wick can be just a little one down over here as well. So, you know, it's not necessarily going to be a straight shot up here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get a bit of a grind up. When I was looking at this, I generally chart these things on a couple of different things just to sort of keep it a little bit clearer sometimes as well. And I did also notice on a previous chart that I had that I'd knocked this out, and you actually got, this seems to be, if you want to find and trade a channel, a little bit more of a respected channel that sort of we could be sort of trading off. On the other chart, you sort of see this one here. I had this sort of higher up channel here, and obviously it just blew straight through this. So this kind of becomes really invalid. So that's not worth sort of really looking at. You might be able to hold this one up the top here. We'll see what happens when it gets back up over here. But really, if we flip onto this other one, this seems to be a pretty reasonable sort of, channel that we could be saying to trade through. Relevant to this is that if we can get a little bit of a sort of push on, and we do see a continued sell off of the US dollar, then, you know, we could get a bit of a push. The RSI is here to support, certainly tipping up. It's still in well oversold, moving back up and that. So, I mean, if they can catch on to that, we could be seeing a big move back up, and obviously sort of like wherever this line sort of gets the touch, that could be a place that we could sort of see some rejection for a continuation. It also gives us a pretty good idea of sort of what we're looking for in terms of, okay, if we want to see a breakout and we want to see, okay, here's the actual largest change of trend, is to get above this line here. Sorry, this falling resistance. So, I mean, this is going back from, when's this sort of, you know, back from May, back from the highs. If you watched any of my sort of other videos as well earlier, I don't really count from this top over here, the top wick with the gold, because this area, it's different on different platforms. So different prices is due to sort of like, you know, where, I guess how many people were there, because it was a big stop, right? And that's kind of thing. That was a blow off top, but that was because everybody had a whole bunch of their stops above these areas over here. And as it's obviously it's come back up, it's gone pop straight off the top. And then bang. So that gives a different sort of price here. So these are more the ones that I sort of am trading off at the moment. For the time being, we're starting to see it sort of shore up, as I said. And you can see these support areas sort of really holding here. And that comes in line with what we've sort of had on Friday's session as well. So certainly I wouldn't be surprised if, again, US dollar sells off if we can get a little bit of a continuation. Gold certainly has a little bit of short-term medium upside here in this very much a downtrend sell-off sort of channel. Speaking of DXY, you can see here we really, as I said, I mean, it's the opposite of what you've seen with gold and Aussie. And going back to, again, on Friday's video, this was the main trend that I've been trading off, and we're under the bottom side of this now. you can see that this, if you carry it, oh, not this one, if you carry this through here, it's just held every time. So that's an interesting sort of line to sort of, because obviously it danced through the middle here, was chopping and churning with it, but it's certainly on the underside here. We're coming into this sort of like horizontal sort of short-term, medium-term support. There's certainly a lot of work to do. Like, I think there's 105, 104, they're going to be the big numbers. If we can start to get down underneath those, then I think there's a higher chance that we may be of seeing at least a medium term. I don't think this is going to be a proper top for sort of US dollar at the moment, but certainly, after coming up for so long and realistically, even if you just look at this last push up here and you have a look at sort of what was the RSI doing at the same time, this is it there. Again, negative divergence. They're a great reversal. If you can see them and actually fully identify them as they're sort of coming, they're a very high hit rate kind of sort of reversal indicator to look for. So that's an interesting one coming through there. I haven't actually had a chance to look at it so much on the sort of lower time frames, but yeah, you can see actually even sort of with this, like I was trading the last sort of section here, and you can see that it was support, it's came up being resistance, come back down here. Any no prizes for guessing what happened here. That was the NFP. Bang, flew through, and then look, it's matched up with this other one that we've just got going along here. So it's always important to sort of look left, look at where these levels, where the buys, work out like whoever's moving whatever market you're trading, what are they reacting off? And it's not always going to be the same. It's not always going to be reliable, but it's certainly something that can give you a higher probability in different areas as to where you want to sort of sell, buy, take profit, whatever you're doing with the market. But yeah, certainly the reaction of this and the fact that even on those, they're incredibly high numbers. And I guess the idea with these sort of things is that, if the whole market's surviving and USD just doesn't seem to be able to do anything wrong in terms of data recently, like every bit of data is just pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. But you're 13 weeks straight. We're moving into 14 weeks now. This must have come in with a sort of on a weekly with a nice sort of fat wick. And that's actually our first bearish close, actually. If you look at that, like albeit a very sort of small body on that. Look at the size of the wick compared to the body. This is like, high wick, high wick. Look, there's still a chance we could get a little push up again here. And as I said, maybe this news over the weekend will sort of cause a bit of a push up over here. You're flatlining on the weekly overbought. You're on the underside of this sort of trend that we've been sort of following. And you're coming into this high time frame. Sorry, it's late on the Sunday here. High time frame known rejection zone, which we marked out earlier, and we said, look, if it busts here, it's going to come up here, and we're coming back down. So, yeah, all things are pointing to a little bit more of a cooling off. This horizontal seems to be holding a little bit at the moment, or at least it did sort of like for a split second into close. So see what happens. You've got to assess the market reaction to this news over the weekend. But certainly, this was a nice big fat rejection, and obviously the continuation coming down there. So, I reckon we still could see some further profit taking, regardless of what happens in terms of that news. Like people may get scared and sort of pump things up, but end of the day, you've got anybody that's been long for the last 3 months, anywhere along here, there's a lot of profit just sitting in the market at the moment. Like, do you want to be the one that's trying to sort of squeeze out that last little penny over here, or do you want to sort of lock something in? And you may see a little bit of a quicker sort of profit-taking move down here. But again, we'll sort of have to sort of wait to see what happens sort of come Monday. We'll sort of start to do a little bit more of a cleanup of these charts and sort of start to sort of assess where we could be sort of looking for our sort of medium-term targets. But I'll do that sort of throughout the session tomorrow, just to sort of get a bit of a clearer picture. Finally, or not second, finally, we got copper, and copper held. I mean, bang, there you go. As I sort of said, I was saying on Friday that it's not time for copper to be dead yet. It's got at least a couple of pumps of life in it. Like the big takeaway with copper at the moment is the fact that it gave up this triangle, and this is a very high time frame triangle. But we knew buyers had been here previously. We were sitting around here come Friday, and bang, we've exploded up into the close for the week. So again, it's not like it's saved or anything. It really needs to recapture topside. We've said 1380. This is the area in which I'm going to say if we can get back above, is where we're going to be, call it. So around here, the zone. That resistance there. If we can get above sort of 1380, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to call this a fake out, as I've got a circle down here, and we're going to see a continued push up to the top side, because this was coming to a very much a pinnacle point anyway. Interesting to see if this is just a bit of a fake to sort of push it before the end. But you know, for the time being, it's still very much in danger zone of coming back further down here. Downside sort of targets of 340 are very plausible, particularly if we can take out Friday's lows and this wick area here. It's a pretty clear shot straight down to sort of there's a bit of a chop zone down here, sort of low sort of 340s. But still, that's a very large move from where we're at right now, and that's not going to be great for risk as a whole. So interesting to sort of see how that sort of follows up as well. And finally, I just sort of follow up with China. So China, again, I'm trying to sort of trade the wedge, this possible head and shoulders. I've got my alert set up down here, so if we can get down underneath the zone, I'm going to call that confirmation of this head and shoulders. I'm going to be looking for this head and shoulder price target, potentially of sort of wherever that sort of comes across. Other targets being sort of obviously this sort of rising trend that we've sort of been looking at for a while, and then finally there's sort of a horizontal along here. Again, these things can come anywhere along the line. It's just as to when it gets up to this zone. This isn't a sort of a time target. This is more just a price level. If it goes chop, 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 comes down here, we're going to see a reaction. It's going to be this kind of thing, exactly the same as we saw with copper, and it sort of shot back up. So USD is really going to be the sort of driver with that. But for the time being, it's very much still just quite like it's just grinding. I mean, if you look at the sort of things, the sort of direction it was moving here, this was a very clear, solid, straight uptrend. We've got this possible right shoulder happening here at the moment as it starts to roll over, but till we get underneath these wicks, where we've seen markets try to push it down a couple of times, it's still valid to sort of blow this off and either range for longer or even sort of come back up to the top side over here and look for the sort of top side of this sort of ranging bit, this rising resistance. Okay, so yeah, so it's the main sort of thing at the moment, sort of see how this stuff in the Middle East sort of affects it over the weekend, sort of come Monday morning with the markets, and really sort of assess where we can sort of get some good positions. But as it did finish up, risk was very much getting a little bit of a squirt. If you remember, actually, the week before, it was doing very much the same coming into close. It did actually revert and actually close quite badly, but you know, Aussie was ripping up and actually kissed 65. I think a couple of hours before close the week prior, and then it just got absolutely decimated. So where are we here? So yeah, this is there you go. There's the Friday close last week. Up here, 65, bang, smack bang. And if you look at this wick here as a very much of a top, the size of these wicks with these little bodies, you can see the reaction. It's just like you can't just stop on a dime. You'd expect a little bit of a obviously this just flew down, but this one sort of managed to hold it a little bit more. And so we sort of start to think, okay, are we going to see something similar with the 4 hour, with the weekly on the DXY? You've gone up, you've come back down, you've got this small body here. Is this also just going to go and shoot down here, possibly sort of hitting these lower areas at sort of like, 105.50, 105 even, 104.50-ish kind of area. So yeah, we'll have to sort of wait and see. All right, cool. That's about it from me for now.